Assalamu alaikum dear students, it is nice to see you again. Thank you so much for following your own lessons. Let's talk about today's objectives. As you know, in this video we're going to talk about these objectives. So let's focus on the objectives first. So in the following objectives, we will study about zoology itself. We will focus deeply on the invertebrates, then we will talk about vertebrates in next videos. Let's talk about these objectives in more details. One of the first things that you should be well familiar with is zoology. So on deeper definition, we can define the zoology that zoology is the branch of biology that studies the animal kingdom. What do we study in animal kingdom? In zoological science, mainly we will focus on the structure or anatomy of the animals, and in biology about evolutions. Also we will study about the classification, how to know about the animals, about their names, about their habitats, and also we will study about distribution of all animals. It means any kind of informative functions that are involved in animalia kingdom, so we will study in zoology. Let's first talk about invertebrates. Mainly you will find a unit in your 11th class biology book that will talk about invertebrates. So in order to understand the invertebrates and about its phylums, we will talk about its definitions first. What invertebrates means? Invertebrates are animals without a backbone or a bony skeleton. It means they are those animals that they lack a skeletal system. So mainly invertebrates are divided into different phylums, but we will study about four obvious or important phylums of invertebrates in 11th class biology. So let's talk about it in more details. One of the first phylums that we will study in invertebrates is mollusca. As you see, the snail belongs to mollusca. Another one is annelida, the earthworms, and many and other examples that we will study in further slides. Echinodermatas or starfish, and also about the final phylum that we will study about arthropods. Let's talk about these beautiful creatures in more details. Part 1. In part 1, we will study about phylum mollusca. What is the exact meaning of the phylum mollusca? You should know that it is a derived name from Latin word which means animal with soft bodies. So according to morphological, we can say that molluscs are those animals which are soft-bodied, and they are bilaterally symmetrical animals. For example, the mussels, the octopuses, snails, slugs, oysters, and squids. So about their habitats, we can define that they can live in different life conditions. So we can find them in marine water and salt waters. Also we can find them in fresh waters, but mainly we can find them in terrestrial or land. These are the main classes of phylum mollusca. Let's talk about the class itself, about the example animals, and about the main characteristics of each class of phylum mollusca. One of the first classes of phylum mollusca are known as gastropods. Mainly the example animals could be taught as a snail, slug, or nudibranch. They are really quite beautiful animals. So about the characteristics, we can define that they are animals that live in marine, freshwater, or terrestrial, as we discussed before. So what another obvious characteristics you can see are these, that they are well developed, they possess well developed head with tentacles and eyes. They also possess large flat foot for creeping. Let's talk about another class of the phylum mollusca, that is bivalves. Bivalves could be exampled like animals For example, clams, oysters, mussels. About their characteristics, we can say that they are also marine and freshwater animals. They are a compressed body. It means the body is compressed between two shapes. That we will talk about it in a few slides. On next slides. So they possess no head. Also, a two-part hinge shell covers the body, that we call it bivalves. About the final class of mollusca, we can say that they are called cephalopods. The animal example or example of the animals could be taught as squids, octopods, and cuttlefish. About their characteristics or properties, we can say that they are intelligent animals. Why? Because they possess different important regions that make them able in order to be a good homeostasis animal in their habitat or to be successful in different conditions. So they possess head with eyes. Food is divided into arms or tentacles, and about their habitat, we can say that they can be found mainly in marine waters, and they are predators. I mean, they consume their feeding materials through predatory. Let's talk about the gastropods. At first, we should know about the meaning of the word gastropods. Gastropods, that example animals are snail, slugs, nudibranch. From their unusual and beautiful structure, you can find that the meaning of gastropod is a stomach food. It means their body is organized in a manner that you can find the food attached with their stomach. So let's talk about the main characteristics and properties why gastropods are gastropods. These definitions or characteristics are well-defined point for gastropods. So in order to understand about the gastropods, we can say that these are one of the earliest known types of animals in the world. The second, they can be found inside aquatic or terrestrial environments. So about the different habitual habitats or ecological needs, we can say that they are able in order to adapt to variety of life conditions. So about their numbers and species, we can range them at a second place after the arthropods. It means gastropods range second when it comes to the number of named species. So they are quite in a huge diversity of species. Let's talk about physiological parts of the gastropods. One of the example animals are snails, as you can find in different regions within these animals. For example, mainly we can divide a gastropod body parts into three regions: one head, second foot, and third is visceral mass or internal regions or organs. So as you see this picture, this is called radiola. This is the mouth of the animal snail, which grants food substances in order to carries it or lead it toward the stomach, then toward the intestines, then it gets out of the body and the mantle cavity from the anus. So by possessing the two holes, one the mouth, second the anus, we can say that they possess a complete digestive system. What about their respiratory system? Mainly, as we know that snails are those animals that they can live inside the water, also outside of the water. So we can say that they breathe through their gills. But in terrestrial snails, we can say that they breathe from another things. What about the another visceral mass or their internal parts or body regions? Mainly we can see that this is a large muscular food which the animal used it in order to change its position from one side to another side, but inside the part between the foot and the hard mantle shell that we call it mantle, it is a shell that protects the animal from its soft parts or visceral mass. That is a calcareous shell which is secreted during their life from a gland that is made up of the calcium carbonates. So inside their visceral mass we can find another different regions and parts. After the digestive system, we will focus on the nerve cords. As you see, there is a concentration neuron cells at the anterior part of the plant, the animal. So at the entire part region, you can see that it is a line of nerve cord which regulates any kind of information that is necessary in order to function inside the animal body. About the heart or circulatory system, we can say that the snail or gastropods are defined as open and closed circulatory system. It means their circulatory system is categorized into these two systems, one open and other closed. About another parts, for example, we can say about the reproductive system that they possess gonads which produce sex cells in order to carry out the reproduction system. So let's talk about another parts or another class of the phylum Mollusca, and the second class of phylum Mollusca we will face the bivalves. Bivalves are mainly known as pelagipods. Pelagipods means those animals which do not possess head, but their feet are like axes. As you see, their unfamiliar structure, which is quite similar to this axe. So bivalves are known as pelagipods. They have a hard calcareous shell made up of two parts that we call it valves. Therefore, when we say bivalves, you should understand that their soft body parts are covered with two parts that is called valves. So the shell is usually bilaterally symmetrical. Their example animals could be tortoise, oysters, clams, scallops, and mussels. About the third class of phylum Mollusca, we can say that it is cephalopods. The cephalopods are those animals that they live in marine waters. Mainly they are predators. They are evolved in a manner that helps them in order to maintain different life conditions. So their food is divided into tentacles. Usually it possesses suckers such as the octopus, which their feet are divided into tentacles, and their tentacles possess suckers which helps the animal in order to catch the prey or grab it. They will have or possess well-developed eyes. Mainly, most of the scientists say that they are able in order to see the colorful image. Another important thing that you should know about the cephalopods is their tentacles, which are really useful for this animal in order to maintain its homeostasis in different ecological conditions or habitats. Thank you so much, dear students. That was your first part, Zoology video sequence. See you on part 2 of Zoology video sequences. Thank you so much.